In the book we are launching today is of great inspiration to many. Ladies and gentlemen, you will agree with me that books play an important role in our lives. Good books improve our standard of living and develop us in many qualities. They tone up our intellectual tastes and make our outlook broader. They also remove lack of knowledge, which others would call ignorance, but I think we'll rather call it lack of knowledge, and do add to our knowledge as well as enrich our experiences and shape our intellect. One of the qualities of good writing is that it tells us a full story in a logical and structured manner, and in a manner that is also teachable. Radhika Lee's book, Rainbows in My Clouds, is an excellent example of good writing, for it tells us much about this young girl that 30 years ago traveled thousands of miles from the shores of Kerala in southwestern India to the southern tip, from the southern tip of India to Mombasa in Kenya. And after a few challenges in her life, it began to blossom more in Nairobi, with the sky as the limit.
I call her Radical. Okay, I did meet Radical in Vienna, and where I spoke and shared our vision for our children, the belief that every child is uniquely gifted by God, and as teachers, our role really is to help them find that genius and the passion that they have for life and for learning, and to establish, I think in this day and age, a digital learning environment, an environment that lasts outside the classroom.
Your book is really awesome. Me, Radhika actually is my inspiration because she went and did something. She said, why not start my own school? What if we had 3 of them? Why, absolutely incredible inspiration because she turned words into magic. The meaning of Radhika, as you know better than me, is success and prosperity. Well, the success is there, the prosperity you're creating, not just for you, is for the world. So quite seriously, 3 words that came to me very easily, which I think to me describe you, and I'll describe why these words, were you're a polymath, you're a technologist, that might surprise you, but let me explain, and you're also a fabulous enthusiast. Polymath, because poly is many. You have so many interests. Music, arts, helping people in trouble, reaching out around the world to so many different communities. You're truly a polymath. Technology, does anybody know what that means? Techne is from the Greek. It means art, ingenuity, or insight. Okay? Logos, the lology bit of technology, means the word wisdom or knowledge. And in introducing e-education to Africa, you're a true technologist, I would say, because you've actually inspired people to learn, and as John said, this is learning that happens for life and outside the classroom. That really, to me, is a true technology, not just someone who presses a lot of buttons and stares at a screen. And finally, enthusiast. Now, you can take the everyday meaning of enthusiast. I mean, Radhika oozes enthusiasm. But the meaning of it is this. Forgive my nerdiness. En theos, in God or in spirit. That's the real meaning of the word. And doesn't someone's enthusiasm just touch you? Look, in life, we all have choices, don't we? We have choices to listen to toxic people, or which can be quite satisfying, a good therapy some of the day. Isn't the world awful? Isn't Britain in a terrible state? I don't know. But actually, or to listen to enthusiasts. And whenever I listen to Radhika, I think I'm listening to a true enthusiast. And so those 3 things, to me, very much encapsulates who you are and the gift that you bring. Now, of course, that story we've heard of coming as a 21-year-old to really, from reading your book, I didn't know this, help restore the family fortunes in a way. All the adversity that you went through could only have flourished, I guess, in a fertile soil of your adopted country, which you have also adopted. So I think it's a big thank you, great inspiration in Radhika's book. I've only been to Kenya once, and I must say the word that came to me today when I was thinking about this is that was just one visit, but I would say it's inscribed on my heart, something about that country, and something that really helped Radhika eventually to succeed. Anybody here have a mnemonic at school for rainbow? Let's come back to Radhika's book, which is just great. It's a book that's written with verve, vitality, vigour and vim. And did you have a mnemonic for remembering the colours of the rainbow? Do you remember that? Red, orange, yellow. What did you have? So, what? Yes. Okay, it's different. I mean, in England we have one that will make no sense to anybody else, but it works for me. It's Richard of York gave battle in vain. Why use a short phrase where a long one will do? Richard of York, by the way, has now been discovered, his body in a car park in Coventry. What ignominy. The whole country now is fighting. He's more popular now than he was in his lifetime. But coming back to Radhika, Richard of York gave battle in vain. That, to me, is exactly what Radhika's book is about. If I can take the same letters, R for Radhika, right, you get the idea. Let's go through it. Radhika offers you grit, bravery, inspiration, and vision. So I won't test you on this later, by the way. But I think that's exactly what your book does. And I would say that you're a great fan of Maya Angelou, the great American social activist, African-American poet, absolutely brilliant. And she said the thing with a rainbow is that a rainbow in your cloud is really most valuable when it's a blessing to others, when you bring a rainbow to other people's clouds. And I think that is very much the essence of Radhika's book, her life, and who she is. There's a wonderful Sanskrit phrase I love. Aham Vishvam. I am the universe. Aham Vishvam. To me, Radhika really, really lives that, not in the egotistical sense of I, but in the sense of an I that connects across cultures, across lives, with many interests and many people. And I would just like us all to both congratulate her on her birthday and say, Radhika, you're a great inspiration to all of us. May the road always rise up to meet you. May you continue in success. And my hope is that Rainbows in My Clouds is merely volume 1, because I think the destiny that you can write for the people of Kenya and beyond is absolutely enormous. I'm very flattered to be here. The book is not bad, and I commend you all to reading it. Thank you so much for listening to me. Radhika, thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. Well, now it's the bit that we've all been waiting for, actually. I'd like to call upon Radhika to introduce us to her fabulous book, Rainbows in Your Clouds.
Well, I can only say I'm truly humbled, and I'm so grateful for the warm welcome that the book has received since we launched it early, actually late last year, and this is the first launch outside, somewhere in the UK. This is our first launch in London. Definitely, I'm hoping people will get to read, because everyone has been asking me, when is it coming? Even in the States, people have been asking, are you going to do something here? I would love to, but the thing is, I didn't actually write the book I didn't write to publish. That was never in my mind when I was writing. It was more or less a vent, going through things. You just want to vent, and I didn't really have many people that I could talk to at that time, so I used to go home and just write. And at some point, someone said to me, why don't you put it together, make a book out of it and publish it. It can encourage many people. And it was actually after a visit to the UK, and I was on my way back at Heathrow, I met Jeff Koinange. He's a popular journalist in Kenya. So Jeff is the one who inspired me to put it together as a book and to publish it and to let the world know about it. So I'm glad I did that, because if I hadn't, the thing is, I wasn't sure how people would see the book, and definitely it wasn't a blame game. For me, it was actually telling people not to give up and telling women that they don't have to live in difficult situations, because sometimes you try and you try and you try and you just can't. I'm still married. I use my married name. I'm separated, yes, because I believed in marriage, so I think I still do. It's not easy, but no one should live like that, because you don't really know your potential until you move away and you find your purpose. And that's what I'm really, really grateful about, because what happened was actually when I moved away is when I found my purpose in life. And I've always known working with children is my purpose, but moving away helped me realize it even more. And it's been fantastic since I moved away. And I have Daryl here. I have a lot of my old students, but Daryl is my pride. He just joined LSE this year on a full scholarship. So that is my purpose. Book is secondary for me. My purpose, finding my purpose, and getting kids like Daryl to the best of universities on scholarship and working with children, I think that is my purpose. And I'm so pleased that I've been able to do that. And yes, the book you must read because of very many reasons. Technology is one part, but also having faith in the Almighty. I think what kept me going was just sheer faith, because there was nothing and no one. And faith kept me going. I knew He had my back, always. And I'm glad I'm here to tell the story now. I just want to do a bit of reading from my book. I think it's important. The book is in 3 parts, so I called it Book 1, Book 2, and Book 3. And every book starts with a poem. So if I may just start with the poem in the first one. It's called Karma Sarong. Time and again I let my thoughts wander, trying hard to find the meanings yonder. Never know nothing but sorrow and pain. Pleasures and joys are not mine to sustain. Who do I blame for all the wrong? Karma draped along me like a sarong. That's the first poem. That's introduction to Book 1. And the chapter is entitled Divinity Personified. The memories of my mother are defined by scents, especially Christian dye. The scent of the dye combined with the delicate fragrance of jasmine that adorned her hair every day left a tantalizing trail wherever she went, and the unique essence still endures in my memory. Even now, a whiff of jasmine, and I'm filled with a rush of nostalgia. She loved to wear garlands on her hair, made out of the jasmine that grew abundantly in the compound of her house at Alleppey, and at her house in Cochin, and later in Cherai. That was one of her afternoon chores, stringing together the pristine white buds into a single strand garland, her fingers expertly entwining the stems with the thread. One was for the idol of Lord Krishna that she prayed to, and the other, shorter one, for herself. It was her daily indulgence, her guilty pleasure. Quite often, when I close my eyes, I see her, wearing one of her favorite saris from Kanchipuram, a town in southern India famous for its intricate and beautifully patterned hand-woven silk saris, the big round red bindi on her forehead, looking stunningly beautiful. Mom was a striking lady. She carried herself with poise and charisma. There was something aristocratic about her, something lofty and ethereal. Maybe it was the eyes of love, but it isn't an exaggeration to say that she had a divine aura about her. Her conduct and lifestyle only enhanced this impression of her. To me, my mother was the embodiment of patience and love. She exuded warmth in every phase of her life. Through good times and bad, she stood by the man she had loved and married. She could pick grass that grew in the backyard and turn it into the most delicious dish ever. She had the admiration of all who knew her, including my uncles, her brothers-in-law, who were most often the benefactors of her largesse and culinary talent. Mom would be ready to feed an army of hungry people with finger-licking good food at every opportunity, reminding me of the story of Jesus turning water into wine and feeding a crowd of thousands with just 5 loaves of bread. No one could ever figure out how she managed to do this. Perhaps that was her God-given talent, her unique talent. The second book starts with a poem that says, "The Man I Once Knew." The big brown eyes that I once fell in love with now scare me beyond measure. The long tapering fingers that once lovingly held mine now feel like the talons of a falcon. The feet that waltzed and led me onto the floor now kick and push me to the corner. The man I once knew is no longer the man I once knew. And I want to read something that'll take you to Kenya. Okay? The Kenya that I first saw, actually, when I went there, the first time I was in Mombasa, but then I very soon moved to a school in a place called Ongatarangai. Those of who, some of you who are from Kenya, you know where Ongatarangai is. But for the others, it's a bit on the suburbs of Nairobi. So when I went there, this is how I saw Rongai. Rongai was still virgin territory back then. The area was inhabited mostly by the Maasai, who wore their colorful, sarong-like hand-woven red and black check togas, looking as if they had stepped straight out of all those National Geographic magazines we used to devour as children. Most of them were herdsmen, as was the culture of that particular nomadic tribe. They were meant to be the most fearless among all Kenyan tribes, men who even killed lions. The landscape of that area was untouched, green rolling hills teeming with wild animals. Often you could see giraffes and a host of other wild animals grazing close to the school. The experience was almost cinematic, and I was reminded of African Safari, the movie I had watched with my mom, dad, and Jay as a young girl. So, all I knew about Kenya or Africa before I came was just that, what I had watched in the movies and seen on National Geographic. I had absolutely no idea how it was until I lived in Rongai, and from my house I could actually see giraffes coming to drink water, zebras sometimes because it was bordering the national park. And it was not at all developed at that time. Now Rongai is a lot more developed, but then it wasn't. So that's how I saw Kenya. And moving on to book 3. I was actually thinking I should say something about, but you already said something about the conference. I thought of reading, because I knew you would be here, I wanted to read it for you. I think I still want to read it. It's from a chapter in the last book called Be the Change. Let me just see. It was dinner time by then, and we were escorted to a beautifully laid out table under the stars in the just as exquisite garden. The lake sparkled in front, lit up by the lights of the hotels and mansions dotting the banks. I've been to many grand dinners in my 50 years of life, but this one surpassed anything I had or have ever since experienced. It was not so much the grandeur, but the finesse with which everything was done that night. The ambience, the music, the menu from starters and soup to the dessert, the wine they served from their own vineyard, the chocolates later from their own factory, everything was picture perfect. Before the night ended, there were more surprises for me. At the dining table, seated between John and Richard, I watched Ashwin at the other end, conversing with ease and making Sophia laugh. I was filled with a sense of epiphany. I remembered all those guardian angels who had brought us this far in life from nowhere and nothing. I wondered once again what I had done to deserve this moment that we were experiencing. Deep in these thoughts, I was completely taken aback when John turned to me and said, "Radhika, I want you to close the conference tomorrow." I was quite sure that I didn't hear him right. Surely he could not have just asked me to close the conference. But then John turned to the rest of the table and announced, "I've asked Radhika to close the conference tomorrow." I had heard him right after all. Amidst the cheers and calls of approval, I turned to John, shaken, bewildered, and quite confused. "John, what am I going to say?" He looked at me with such confidence and said, "You're going to tell your story." He paused. "We won't have a more befitting close to this year's conference." I think this is my favorite poem. It's called The Whispering Angel. Is there no hope, no escape, no joy? Is there only pain, despair, and fear? Is it now too late to live again? Is it now time to give in to fate? And just when I thought no one was listening, a voice calls out to me, almost a whisper, and says, "Of course not. Of course not." Thank you.
It's great to be here. Actually, Radhika's nephew, and we've been together since my childhood. I spent a lot of good times with my family. I got a lot on the here tonight. And yeah, it's been a privilege to be with the family and friends to launch this precious book, which I think is a must-buy for every woman, whether you're a professional or not a professional. It's really motivational and inspiring, and all I got to say is, please buy the book, read through it, assimilate the contents, and all the proceeds go to a good cause. And I think, it's been a splendid evening. Thank you.
I think she's very brave to say her story to the world, and it's a good message. She's a great inspiration for not just for the women, for everybody. Just believe in yourself and not give up. And I'm just proud to say I'm her cousin.
It's always an honor to see someone great tell you her story, because to be where she is right now, to do the things she has done, to help people the way she has helped people, there must have been something behind it. And to be able to see that something behind it, to be able to read that something behind it, 300 pages of an amazing human being, that's something that, you can't get anywhere else. So I think that's what Radhika is in general. Like you've heard from all the speakers, an amazing person. And when she tells her story, you sit down and you listen.
For her to put her life out there in the public like that, what is your thought about Radhika and that bravery?
I think she's very brave to do that, and it is an inspiration to, as she said, to all the women that we should come out of any obstacles that we face and take it as a challenge and make it into something positive.
As a person, what really impressed me is her courage, and the fact that she left India at the age of around 22, and at that tender age, she took that big risk, and it's eventually done really a good thing to her as an individual, as well as the Kenyan people as a country, or as the children of Kenyans benefited a lot about that risk taking. So I admire her risk taking attitude a bit of that's what I think is.
A risk-taking attitude, that is what she's done. But you've come here today, you've seen the people who are coming to launch Radhika's book. What is your personal message to Radhika? What would you like to tell her?
Don't stop here. Please keep doing, and doing. You have all the ingredients to do well. Please do it. Don't stop here. That's it.
I think it's very inspiring because I think it makes you realize we all talk about overcoming adversity, but I don't think I've had that kind of adversity in my life. And it makes me think maybe I missed some opportunities as well. So it's very moving, it's very intimate, it's very personal. I think it's a message for everybody. I think particularly for women, though, because she's done so much of this as a single woman. And I think that is that is, I don't know, perhaps half the women in the world.
What do you think we can do to have more Radhikas in our society, especially in the developing countries?
Well, I think they can read her book. I think is a starting point, and I think it's a beacon to show that you can achieve what you want to achieve. I don't think it's a solution in itself. I think there are other ways to do this, but I think Radhika's book is just like a great example or roadmap. It can be done.
Finally, what's your personal message to Radhika when she's watching this video?
My personal message is we think you're great, Radhika. Carry on, get into the meditation, do more about inner technology as well as outer technology, and you'll conquer Africa and the world.
I know Radhika basically from 20 years ago when she was not just my teacher, but she is related to me distantly. We're from the same place in Kerala, in India, and she was my teacher, my English teacher as well in school. So that's how I actually know her. I know a lot about her, both professionally as well as personally, and she's just a huge inspiration.
Fantastic, but this book, Rainbows in My Clouds, it's making people's eyes to open because they're like, wow, she has opened her life into the public. How do you think the people would take to the fact that she's an Indian woman who's come out to speak about her fallen marriage?
I'm an Indian woman with a broken marriage. I have a child, he's 13, so I talk about it, and I think now is the time, because of people like her, that we can all start talking about these things which affect us, not keep it inside, push it back to the past where it really belongs, and go ahead in future.
All I've understood, I've not read the book yet, I have to admit, I just bought my copy right now. But from everything that I've heard about her, because I still have family back home in Kenya, and I visit my family, I have nieces who live in Nairobi, so they're in that school circle. So I've heard a lot about her and her school in Nairobi. And all I can say is that it has been rather inspirational to hear about this teacher who came from India, who was teaching us English, who has now set up her own school, who's motivating so many other kids, and whose school seems to be doing really, really well as well. And I'm hearing about her more from the outer circles than actually even in contact with her. So that's a huge motivational and inspirational character, I think.
And so here's an Indian woman in Africa who says, I'm going to start my own girls' school. And not only was she able to do that, but now she has multiple schools and the love in her heart. And she came to our conferences every year. We had international school conferences in Prague and in Switzerland and Singapore. And in Switzerland, it's a wealthy country, and I could just see that the people were saying, well, we can't do this, and so I said, you know what, I'm going to have Radhika close this conference, because if she can do it, anybody can do it. I think the book title tells it all. She has faith. She's never given up. She's overcome all of the obstacles. I think it's a message that I think should be part of all of our education. There's sort of knowledge, there's sort of core knowledge that we need. Then there's knowledge which we need to do something, and then there's the knowledge that is what we do of value to people and society. And I think she represents all three of those. You know.
Finally, one message for Radhika. What message would you like to send her? She's going back to Kenya. What would you like to tell her from you as a friend to Radhika?
We love you, Radical. We love you. Never stop being who you are.
Just that she's an inspiration to not only me, but young women all across the world, especially in Kenya. She's been such a huge figure in educating children in Kenya, and it's just amazing that she's been able to find time to put all of her amazing words down into this book. And I just encourage everyone to read it because it's such a great the message is just amazing, and the cause that all the proceeds go to cancer charity is just amazing. So I would encourage everyone to buy at least one copy.